欢迎收看《家国纵横》，我是康凯。安省宾顿市市长彭建邦竞逐联邦保守党党魁之位，他对现自由党政府与新民主党的结盟协议有什么看法？彭建邦在4月初接受了专访，谈到了最关注的宗教自由、税务等问题，还指出他对自由党施政有哪些方面的不满。如果他当选保守党党魁，最迫切的议题是什么？又有什么样的解决办法呢？
On Zoom, we have City of Brampton Mayor Patrick Brown. Hi, Patrick. Good to see you.
Good to see you. Thank you for having me on.
Yes, thank you so much for your time. First of all, you're very well known in Ontario. For Ontarians, you're known by, the City of Brampton Mayor, and also you were an MPP, you were the leader of the Ontario PC Party. But to the whole Canada, who should they think about you? Like, who is Patrick Brown to them, to all Canadians, and why are you running?
Well, I'm a fighter, I'm a leader, and I'm a winner. And that's the theme of my campaign. I'm going to fight for all Canadians. I'm going to be a leader on issues important to Canadians. I'm not going to back down from doing what is right. That's how I've governed myself as mayor of the city of Brampton, as a former leader of the Ontario Conservative Party, as a longtime MP. I'm going to be focused on unleashing Canada's economic potential to create good paying jobs, to make sure that every Canadian is able to contribute.
Patrick, what is your take on the recent deal between the Liberals and the NDP? Like, if that's going to stay, does it mean that even if you're going to win this leadership race, you're not going to be able to run for Prime Minister until 3 years later, 2025?
Well, what I'd say is watch out for your wallet, because when the Liberals and the NDP get together in a coalition, they're going to spend like drunken sailors. And we need to make sure that we defeat this government as soon as possible, because Canada's financial stability is threatened. I look at this government right now, we've got debt levels that are out of control. We have interest payments crouching our ability to provide funding for key Canadian services. And this is a backroom deal. This is a deal with the NDP and the Liberals that was not selected by Canadians. Canadians didn't give the Liberals a blank check. Canadians didn't elect a Liberal majority government, but this backroom deal gives them a majority government. So I think it's a slap in the face to Canadian voters. It's a subversion of our democracy, and it's going to imperil the financial stability of the country.
So we want to know about your political position, because, even Aaron O'Toole had some of a problem, especially at the end of his campaign, to try to unite the whole Conservative Party. Like, we want to know, who are you in the Conservative Party? What's your position in the political spectrum, and how are you going to unite the whole Conservative Party of Canada?
We need to focus on issues that unite Conservatives, but also unite Canadians. And the issues that I have been fighting for in the federal arena are issues like religious freedom. Bill 21 in Quebec diminishes religious freedom. No one should lose their job based on their faith, and that's happening in parts of the country. I do not accept the positions that Pierre Poilievre and Justin Trudeau have taken, that they're going to sit on the sidelines. No one should face discrimination. No Canadian should be targeted. A big issue for me is making sure that we can have energy security, that we can have a national pipeline. Here in Ontario, when we fill up for gas, I find it infuriating that we become wealth generators for other countries like Venezuela and Saudi Arabia and Russia. Mm-hmm. I want us to be wealth generators for Canadians. We need a national energy corridor. Right. I look at our law and order system, and it's broken. And we have a revolving door justice system. I get briefings regularly by the chiefs of police, and they tell me you get the same high flyers, as they say it, frequent flyers, the same people committing the same crimes again and again and again. But this government has been tone deaf to the need for bail reform. I want to build a justice system that respects the rights of victims as much as it does the rights of criminals. These are issues that I believe have political support across the Conservative spectrum and, frankly, across the Canadian spectrum.
Right. Patrick, you mentioned the energy sector, and we are facing a world energy crisis right now. And your opponent, Mr. Pierre Poilievre, he actually tried to claim that you and Jean Charest supports Prime Minister Trudeau's carbon tax. And as you know, the carbon tax was just implemented not long ago, and gas prices are going through the roof. So what's your feeling about when Pierre Poilievre says that you support Justin Trudeau's carbon tax?
What I've said very clearly is now is the wrong time for any tax increases. And the fact that the government is raising the carbon tax today is wrong. The fact that the government of Canada has decided to raise the carbon tax again is absolutely the worst time. And I was the first mayor in Canada to come out swinging against it. You know, the volatility we've seen because of the Russian invasion of Ukraine, the inflationary pressures around the country, the fact that we're still reeling post-COVID, now is the worst time to put any new burden on Canadians. And it's why I don't support this increase.
On to other federal policies. You know, we just had a very tough pandemic for the past 2-3 years. We want to know, like, the country is actually getting back to normal, but like, what can we do? What are you gonna do as Prime Minister to, you know, to recover Canada's economy and to attract more people to actually invest in Canada?
Well, great question. And that's what we need to focus on right now, getting Canada's economy back on its feet. We need to create jobs. We need to create an environment where businesses can grow again, invest again, hire again. The economic consequences from the pandemic have been enormous. And we need to make sure that we create an environment where businesses can succeed. I want to see a low tax policy. I want to see a reduction in red tape. I want to make sure that Canada is the easiest place in the world to do business, to invest, to grow. And frankly, we should be diversifying our trade relationships as well. And we shouldn't be so dependent on the United States. We should be looking at where else there are corridors for Canadian markets, for Canadian goods. I'm going to be very ambitious in supporting our ability to make job creation the cornerstone of our economy.
That's good to hear. On foreign policy, you know, under Prime Minister Trudeau, relations between Canada and China have hit a historic low. And if you become PM, how would you repair this relationship? What's your foreign policy plan? And how do we also at the same time stand up for the Canadian values and interests?
Well, I think it's important, obviously, in Canadian foreign policy that we always stand up for human rights as part of our principles as Canadians and frankly as a conservative party. But I also say that we need to have strong economic relations. We need to have trade corridors. We need to be able to market our goods to the world. And that is important. And I look at the ASEAN region in totality, and there is an incredible opportunity there in Asia Pacific, where I want to make sure that Canadian businesses can effectively market their goods. This is directly tied to jobs. This is directly tied to economic opportunity and prosperity for Canadians. You know, I've worked closely with some good friends like Senator Victor Rowe, who has really tried to articulate within the Conservative Party why it's so important to create effective trade corridors in the Asia Pacific, because the growth of the economy, the economic potential for Canadian businesses that are looking for new markets, and we have had some trade challenges with the U.S. We need new markets. We can't be dependent on one country.
Yeah, and you mentioned trade. Well, we are under a very strained supply chain crisis right now. And what's your plan on that, the supply chain?
Well, in some respects, we're going to need to create domestic corridors for our supply chain. I think what we saw during the pandemic was that Canada was too reliant on other countries in terms of vaccine production, pharmaceutical production, PPE production. There are key goods that any country needs for their own sovereignty, and we need to make sure we've got the domestic production capacity for that. But I'll say one more thing, and that is, during the pandemic, there were moments where we saw despicable anti-Asian hate. And some politicians preyed upon that for political support. I've always stood against that, unequivocally. When I saw the language being used by the Donald Trumps of the world, attacking those of Asian heritage, what I did in Brampton is I called a press conference and I invited the community to come with me and visit different Asian Canadian businesses to show our support. When one Canadian is attacked, we're all attacked. And I do not accept hate against any community. I do not accept disparaging any community. We're a Canadian family. We stick together, and no Canadian should ever be targeted.
We want to know, what do you think about, you talk about hate crime, and it's not just hate crime all over the country. Crime rates have been going up, and we want to know, like, you're the city of Brampton mayor, and what can we do to actually tackle the crime problem?
Well, you know, law enforcement puts a ton of effort and energy into making sure that those who commit crimes are held responsible. But the problem is we have a revolving door justice system. You know, I had one incident in Brampton where the police caught the criminal 5 times. 5 times.
Wow.
And on each occasion, this criminal got let out. On the 5th time that he got let out, against the wishes of the police, against the wishes of the Crown Attorney, on the 5th occasion, he committed a murder. We can't have a justice system it's a revolving door. These loopholes and this leniency from the government of Canada and the Trudeau Liberals is unacceptable. We need to support law enforcement to keep our community safe. And we've seen gun smuggling into the country proliferate. We've seen gang activity proliferate. We need a partnership with the government of Canada where we are informed by law enforcement how we can fix the loopholes in our criminal justice system. I find it really disheartening as a mayor of a big city, the fact that the government of Canada continues to be tone deaf to the challenges that frontline police officers are facing in keeping our community safe.
Well, Patrick, we're very happy to talk to you. We hope you good luck on your campaign. And thank you so much for your time.
All the best. Thank you so much.
以上就是本期的内容。各位观众，如果想重温的话呢，可以登入城市电视网站，点击节目重温当中家国纵横的链接就可以了。我是康凯，下期节目再会。